Mother-in-law claimed she couldn't bond with my kids BC they don't look like her son enough. So I quietly let her keep talking until she took things too far and made this disgusting comment about the paternity of my kids at their birthday, and husband made this revelation about his own DNA and revealed the real reason why she can't bond with the kids. I'll try to keep this as short as possible. My mother-in-law and I have never really gotten along, and I've been married to my husband for almost 6 years now. We've been together for 8 years, and I'll admit we had a bit of a rushed wedding, and I think that's a huge part of why she doesn't like me that much. We had been together for about 1.5 years when I discovered that I was pregnant, and because I was sure of him by then, I decided to keep the baby, and he was quite happy about it as well. Neither of us wanted to wait to get married, so we had a very short engagement and a small intimate wedding. We don't regret it, but my mother-in-law already didn't like me before that, and that just gave her an even better excuse to dislike me more. She's always taken digs at me, but recently she went too far. So far, we have been putting up with her because honestly I knew that my husband had no other option. He's the only child of his parents, and his father passed away shortly after our marriage from a sudden heart attack, so he couldn't bring himself to just abandon his mother, and I totally understand that. I actually respect him more for it in spite of my personal differences with the woman. Anyway, she had restricted herself to taking digs at me, but she couldn't openly come out and say anything against me, and so as long as that was the case, I didn't really care because I knew that my husband loved me and nothing she said or did could ever change that, so it was honestly her loss. So anyway, I have a 6-year-old son and a 5-month-old daughter, and my mother-in-law has never really been able to bond with her grandchildren either, probably because she knows that I'm their mother, or maybe she just doesn't like kids that much because I haven't really seen her enjoy the company of any kids in the family, let alone her own grandchildren. But anyway, the point is that she doesn't really care for my kids, and I'm fine with it because, honestly, it just makes sure that she stays away. Anyway, she visits very scarcely, and it's mostly my husband who drops by her house every couple of weeks for a few hours, and she shows up at our place only when we have a party or anything, just to keep up appearances. We have been fine with that arrangement for so long, but recently, she crossed the line at my son's birthday party. So I don't know what really got into her, but all of a sudden while the adults were chatting, she started talking about how she had always found it very difficult to bond with children. I don't remember what exactly we were talking about, but we had been talking about our relationship with our kids, and she started talking about this thing. I found it very strange, but we let her talk, and all of a sudden she was talking about how she thought that she found it difficult to bond with the grandkids because she thought that they didn't look like my husband as much as they should. That was a pretty bizarre thing to say because my son is literally a mini version of my husband, and that's not just something that I'm saying. Literally everyone has said that. With my daughter, the resemblance is a little less prominent, but it's still there. Our kids are the perfect combination of us, and they have our features, and nobody can deny that. So I didn't know what she was talking about, but I let her go on because I knew that she was probably ramping up to something insulting, and because she had involved my kids this time. I wanted to hear what she was building up to so I could finally put an end to all of this because my patience had really worn thin. Anyway, eventually, while talking about how she doesn't think that my kids resemble my husband enough, she accidentally ended up implying that she had her doubts about the paternity of my children, and that was it for me. I was about to get up from my place and tell her to leave that very instant, but my husband saved me all the trouble. He had been doing the same thing that I had been doing, hearing her out so that we could put an end to all of this. And as soon as she mentioned the thing about paternity, my husband actually burst out laughing, which was a weird reaction, but he explained it all in the next couple of seconds. So basically, while telling off his mother, my husband revealed to everyone that she had no right to be talking about paternity when he himself knows very well what kind of a person she was. And judging by the expression on his mom's face, I knew instantly that he was onto something, which he was because he basically just told everyone in the room that his mother had been lying to him his entire life about who his real biological father was. He revealed that he had known that his biological father was not who he believed he was his entire life, but it had actually been his father's ex-business partner and close friend who had had an affair with his mother, which resulted in his birth. Apparently, a couple of weeks after his father passed away, he received all of this information from the executor of his father's will, and his mother had no idea. So not only had my father-in-law known all along about his wife's infidelity, he had put up with it because he loved her and because he was ready to forgive her. And my husband had been pretending not to know about any of this for the same reason, because he loved his father and he wanted to respect his wishes. But now that his mother had crossed this line by dragging our children into her insults directed at me, he felt like he had to bring this up because the sheer hypocrisy of the whole thing was not lost on him. And I'm glad that he spoke up because as soon as he revealed all of this, she started denying it vehemently. But there was no point because the way she was getting so defensive, it was very evident that she knew that she had been caught. After a while, she just started crying and muttering incoherently about how he had disrespected her, and then she just stormed off. Obviously, The rest of the guests who were in the room were a bit uncomfortable, and they left soon after. There were a few family members in there as well, and they were scandalized that such a huge secret had come out like this, but my husband and I couldn't care less. However, his mom and a couple of other members of the family, mostly the senior ones, have been insisting that we apologize to her simply because this was not the way for this kind of secret to have come out in public. They believe that we have humiliated her, and they want an apology, but I don't think we have anything to apologize for. More than anything else, they are making me out to be the bad guy here because they believe that I brainwashed and manipulated my husband into going against his mother, and they think I'm planning on isolating him or something. My husband hasn't responded to them yet, but I'm considering telling him to cut ties with his family. Only the members who have been nasty towards me though. Now I don't want to sound selfish, but after the way I've been treated by these people, I don't feel comfortable knowing that they might be a part of my husband's life in the future. I think I've put up with enough. I don't want to do this anymore. And I know that he has been around these people his entire life, and they've watched him grow up and he has a bond with them or whatever, but I just don't want him speaking to them anymore. I'm just afraid that it'll be too selfish of me to ask that of him, and that's why I've been holding back so far. I just wanted to know if I'll be the a-hole if I actually ask him to cut ties with his family. So AITA for wanting my husband to go no contact with his family? Edit. I didn't know that my mother-in-law had been cheating on her husband either until my husband spoke about it at the party. I don't feel offended about it either for very simple reasons. Firstly, my father-in-law clearly did not want that to be known, and my husband was only respecting his father's last wishes. Secondly, it takes a certain kind of strength to know this kind of thing and keep it all to yourself. And I respect my husband for possessing that kind of strength. After all, this was about his relationship with his father and I'm not going to question it. This was not a secret about me. It's not threatening our marriage, so I don't really care that he kept it from me. Now, coming to the affair and everything, I don't really know much about it apart from whatever was mentioned by his father. Apparently my husband had received all of this in a letter that his father had left for him quite a few years back. Very dramatic, but I'm guessing that's how his dad intended it to be because from what I know, my father-in-law was a bit of a theatrical man. Anyway, my husband did let me read the letter recently, and in it, his father had mentioned that he had been married to my mother-in-law for almost 3 years, and they had been trying to conceive, but nothing was working. Then when she got pregnant all of a sudden he got suspicious and went digging and that's when he realized that she had been having an affair with his business partner. He was obviously heartbroken but he really didn't want his marriage to go down the drain because he truly loved my mother-in-law. So he decided to stay silent about it. He'd never confronted my mother-in-law about it, but he did speak to his business partner at the time and the man couldn't deny it. They had been friends for a very long time, so I guess that kind of got to him. And out of shame, he decided to buy my mother-in-law out of the business and my father-in-law walked away with his pregnant wife and a huge sum of money. With that, they relocated to another city and that was that. So that's all I know. I don't know if my mother-in-law cheated on her husband again, but from whatever my father-in-law spoke about, I could figure that he really loved her and he really wanted to make it work, which is why he never confronted her about it. And she never had any clue that all along he had been aware of the fact that the baby was not his. And, yeah, it's confirmed that my husband and his father were not biologically related because he didn't get a paternity test conducted a couple of months after my husband was born, and the results were not in his favor. So, yeah, that was that. Honestly, it was quite shocking for me to find out about it as well, and I guess I'm happy that the kids were too busy playing to have overheard any of this. But, yes, I hope this answers all the questions that you guys had. Update 1. Hey, everyone, thank you so much for your input on our situation. And I'm really grateful to everyone who commented. Reading through the comments, I guess I got a lot of insight and clarity on the situation that I really needed. So it's been 3 days since my post and without any further delay, I decided to speak to my husband about everything that had been weighing on me and just ripped off the band-aid a couple of hours ago. After I told him everything that I had mentioned in my post, all my concerns, how I didn't want to make him feel like I was pressuring him to do anything, but I still didn't feel like having anything to do with that part of his family right now. He told me that he totally understood all of this, and he had actually been intending on bringing it up with me because he could tell that I was very uncomfortable with all of this, and rightfully so because if I were in his place he knew that I would have cut these people off without a thought, and he felt guilty that he hadn't done that yet. But at the end of the day he was also in two minds about what to do regarding the situation with his mother. He told me that it was no big deal for him to cut off the people who were siding with his mom, speaking of his relatives, but it was cutting off his mother that was the biggest dilemma for him right now because he knew that without him, she pretty much had nobody. Since all these relatives, even though they were close to her, mostly spoke to her on the phone, and some of them were a lot older than her as well. It's not like they could always be available for her if she needed any sort of help. At the end of the day, he was her son, and she was only going to be able to count on him when it really came down to it. and I totally understood what he was talking about. I can understand why he hadn't blocked her yet, and like I said, this is what I had respected about him and always will. So I told him that maybe we could come to a compromise regarding the situation, and he agreed to that. But regarding the other relatives who had been pressuring me to apologize, he told me that I don't need to worry about that because he's already made up his mind that he's not going to have anything to do with them because they clearly have their priorities all messed up. So that's not a matter of concern for us anyway. We are just talking about his mother now. Anyway, we decided that she would not be welcome at our house anymore because, clearly, she has overstepped her boundaries many times now, and I've put up with it for long enough. I don't deserve to be treated like this, and unless she apologizes to me sincerely, she's not going to be welcome here. And until she apologizes to my husband, he's not going to be talking to her either. Of course, in case of any emergency or whatever, he's going to be there for her, and I guess in that situation I might not be able to hold myself back either because regardless of whatever has happened, I wouldn't want her to fall sick or anything. But, yes, until then, I think this is the best way for us to deal with the situation at hand. Now coming to a couple of questions that you guys had regarding the paternity of my husband. A lot of you wanted to know if he was planning on reaching out to his biological father or not, and in short, he's not. We discussed it, and he told me that at the end of the day both his mother and that guy hurt his father because the guy that my mother-in-law had an affair with used to be a friend of my father-in-law and not just friends. They were actually business partners. So I can't imagine how much of a betrayal it must have been for my father-in-law to find out about what happened. I think it's a wise decision for my husband not to have any sort of connection with that person and not to go seeking him out anymore. Of course, he's tried to check him out on social media, but it didn't really show up much apart from a LinkedIn account. He's not active on social media, and I guess it makes sense because he's from my mother-in-law's generation, and I'm guessing he doesn't find it interesting. It was a bit of a bummer though because we couldn't really find out anything about him from his LinkedIn account apart from the fact that he's still running the company that he built with my father-in-law. Anyway, that was that, and this is how we are choosing to deal with my mother-in-law for the moment because I don't think that there is anything else that we can do. We are definitely not going to go out of our way to talk to her and make things right with her. We know that she feels humiliated and insulted, but so do I. Whatever she said at the party that day was totally uncalled for. No matter how much I try not to think about it, I can't forget what she said and how smug she was about the whole thing. I think this serves her right, and if she truly cares for her son and values him in her life, she's gonna know what's right for her, and she'll apologize to both of us, not just him. Personally speaking, I don't see that happening anytime soon. But whatever, it's not like I'm waiting for her to apologize. My life is going to go on regardless. Update 2. So it's been 2 weeks since the party, and today, I received an email from my mother-in-law in the morning. And I have to say, it's pretty interesting. She's made it clear that she wants her son to be a part of her life, but the approach that she's taking, I don't know if that's going to work because she has decided to curse me out. She has decided to blame me for everything that's happening and refuses to take any sort of accountability for what role she has played in all of this. I wish I could say that I was shocked, but I'm really not because in her head, she's always the victim and she's never at fault for anything at all. So the fact that she is blaming me for all of this doesn't come as a surprise to me. In the email that she sent me right in the beginning, she said that she was disappointed and heartbroken that her son was choosing to take my side over his own mother's, and that she knew that she never should have let him get involved with a woman like me who has always been out to make him several ties with his family. I'm not even joking. She suggested I might be doing some sort of witchcraft or something to make him act like this because otherwise she can't imagine why her son wouldn't want to talk to her anymore over something so petty like this, I have to say. She said a lot of horrible things to me over the years, but this one has to take the cake. To accuse somebody of witchcraft? Wow. I have no idea where that even came from. Anyway, the paragraph was just all of this. Her blaming me for everything that's happened and saying that I'm brainwashing him and whatever. I just skimmed it, to be very honest, because by the or sentence I could get the gist of it. In the paragraph though, that's where things got really interesting because she decided to tell me that I needed to have a paternity test conducted because she knows for a fact that I'm lying somehow, and that she might have made her own mistakes in her time. But that doesn't absolve me of whatever I've done in the past, and given how defensive my husband got when she brought all of this up, she said that she's 100% sure that something is afoot. She's claiming that both of us know for a fact that the children are not his, or at least one child isn't, and she thinks that we should get a paternity test done so that we can prove it to her. And why should we have to prove it to her? For the inheritance, of course. Yeah, as ridiculous as it sounds, that's the reason that she cited. I couldn't make this kind of crap up if I try because she's literally venturing into an area where I can actually call her insane right now. Anyway, I made my husband read that email and he was infuriated. In fact, he was about to call his mother and tell her all about it, but I told him not to bother because honestly there was no point in calling her up, picking a fight with her and then expecting things to be resolved. If anything, things were only going to get worse if he called her because she was probably going to be very dramatic about the whole thing. So I told him not to bother, and I said that the best thing that we can do right now to get back at her is just give her the proof she needs. Basically, in the email, she mentioned that she was worried that the inheritance that she's planning on leaving behind might end up going to grandkids that are not even her own, and that's not something she wants, and so we need to prove it to her that our children are her son's kids. And I guess she has the right to be worried about her inheritance since she comes from a pretty rich family and does have a significant inheritance of her own. I'm not going to judge her for that, but I think it's too early for her to be worrying about all this because it's not like she's going to be leaving anything for the kids directly. She's going to be leaving her inheritance to her son, and after that, it's going to come to our kids. So it's a pretty long process, and I think she has a lot of time before that happens. Besides, I don't think that my children have any use for jewelry and property documents right now, but whatever. Since she asked for the paternity test now, she's gonna get it now. My husband and I don't really mind that much because obviously we know for a fact what the truth is. And once we have the test results, we can lay this to rest and rub her face in it. So I think that will be pretty satisfying and make it all worth it. I tried to deal with all of this in a dignified way, in a way that would not drag out this whole situation, but clearly, she's not happy with that. She wants things to be dragged out. She wants a lot of drama, so now she's gonna get what she wants. If she thinks that she's the only one who can be petty and dramatic, she's really wrong. Because now that she's going this way, I think it's about time that we show her her place. I'm done with this BS. She has been accusing me of trying to turn her son against us so far. Well, now it's actually going to happen, and I don't even feel bad about it. Update 3. Hey, so it's been a couple of days since my last update. We decided to get the paternity test conducted as soon as possible. And today, we received the results, and obviously, my children are very much related to my husband. There's no doubt about it. So we decided to send those results to my mother-in-law, and now we're waiting for her to respond. We had also replied to her earlier email. We had told her that since she wanted a paternity test, we were going to respect her wishes and give her exactly that. But after that, if we were able to prove that my children were the biological children of my husband, she would have to leave us alone because we are not going to tolerate this kind of bullying and pushing around anymore. She has disrespected us enough. She has humiliated me more times than I can count, and I have always put up with that because I did not want to put my husband in a difficult position, but she has never been thankful for any of it, and instead she has had the audacity to accuse me of trying to turn him against her. Well, now she's actually going to see what that looks like. And I gave her a fair warning. She didn't reply to that email, and she hasn't replied to the email that we sent her a couple of hours earlier either, the one containing the results of the paternity test. We have no idea how she's going to react to any of this, but all I know for a fact is that from now on, we are not going to have anything to do with her. I think she's made it very clear that she doesn't respect either of us, so she can stay on her own now. We've been making a lot of allowances for her, even tolerating her terrible behavior, but I don't think that's necessary anymore. We have a life together. We have our children, and I think we have enough on our plates without her adding to it. If that makes my husband a bad son, I think he's fine with that because he told me that he's not worried about that kind of thing anymore, since if people think that he's been a bad son, he can literally say that his mom has also been a pretty bad mother for the past couple of years. And yes, in the past, her behavior might have been tolerable because he was much younger, but he's a grown man now. She can't keep trying to control his life. She has to respect what he wants for himself. If she can't respect the fact that he's married to me and that he loves me, then he has no place for her in his life. And I think that's pretty sweet. Only if his mother could understand this kind of thing, she wouldn't be digging this grave for herself. Update 4. So we just received a reply from my mother-in-law, and she said that she would be visiting us tomorrow to discuss all of this. That was a pretty surprising reply because I don't think there's anything to discuss anymore. She was wrong. Plain and simple. I don't think she can dispute it, or maybe she can. She's crazy. So I don't know what she's gonna try and do. Anyway, we decided to nip it in the bud, and we told her that there was no need for her to show up because we do not want anything to do with her. We told her that we had had enough of her BS. We couldn't put up with this kind of crap anymore, and she had to learn to stay in her lane now. She had asked for a paternity test and she wanted the results of it, and she had gotten them, and that was it. That was what we had agreed to, and we were not going to do anything more than that. We made it very clear to her that if she bothered showing up tomorrow, then we were definitely going to make her stand outside, and there was no way that she was going to be let inside our house. She can't even complain about it because she's created this situation for herself. Anyway, after we sent her that email, she responded to it saying that if that's what we wanted, she was definitely not going to show up, but she didn't buy the results, and she knew that we must have manipulated something or the other by pulling some strings. And of course she accused me of that as well.